everybody, sorry I'm late talking about these two episodes and I haven't been around for a bit. I had some personal stuff going on, but I'm here right now to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! And then immediately I gotta watch 2 episodes of Card Fight Vanguard to talk about that. Yeah, we're gonna have a busy evening. These 2 episodes kind of go well together, which I appreciate. And that is, they're mostly sort of like giving everyone their kind of curtain call type scene. Obviously, we might get a shot of everyone at the end, but I think it's meant to kind of be like the goodbye for everybody. We have Homura and Revolver finally kind of reconciling, and though I think that scene goes on a little too long and the dialogue's a tad derivative, I think it's kind of this nice poetic thing and sort of showcasing what I think ultimately this arc is about and what this final duel is ending up going to be about. And that idea of being able to let go, being able to forgive yourself or forgive the world and move on with your life. Because you have these two characters, Revolver and Homura, who are kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but still sort of are going through the same thing, and that is they can't let go of their pasts. Homura due to just sadness and anger, and Revolver through guilt and kind of a little confusion. So this sort of idea that through going through this final duel with each other, they were able to forgive themselves and move on and just kind of just accept things the way they are is, I think, a nice metaphor for sort of where this is going. Like, if these two can do it, maybe Yusaku and I can. But what I especially like about it is that they don't just make it a cut and dry, okay, we can move on now, we can be friends now. I like that Revolver's like, okay, I'll turn myself in now, I did some bad shit. But then Homura's sort of thing, an opposite of that is, no, you are needed. Like, yeah, you're not necessarily a good guy, but it would be better if your atonement was trying to help things and trying to fix things. This is kind of interesting because normally the message in stories about guilt and anger and wanting to move on is just move on, forget about it, put it out of your mind, don't think about it ever again, move on with your life. But here it's sort of like Homura does want to move on with his life, and he thinks everyone should. Everyone should be able to be free of this anger and this trauma, but that doesn't mean we should necessarily forget about it. We shouldn't let this happen again. This is a very poignant message considering what's going on in the world today. I'm not going to get political, but I will say this. There is something to be said about that idea of being able to put the past behind you, but never forgetting what led to that. And that is ultimately what Homura is trying to do with this bit. That being said, I feel like it might not be a good idea to let the former terrorist go out on his own. I'm just saying, at least email him once in a while. I also like that shot of Homura's girlfriend, because it sort of almost makes it feel like in his head he's like, yeah, I got a lady, bitches. Y'all gotta be back home, like making love to your hand. Like, be gone, knave. That's kind of my stupid reasoning. Also, if you are a fan of Yaoi and Yaoi fanfiction, oh boy, these past 2 episodes must have been your bread and butter. So yeah, that's where that kind of goes. And then we get Yusaku alone, and the trumpet score is really nice. Or maybe not trumpet, maybe it's sax. I'm a little exhausted right now. I have a lot of anime to watch tonight. My point is, the score is nice. What I like about the music is that musically I don't think Vrains is as good as Arc 5 or 5Ds, which have the 2 best scores, but I like that this score they went with allows itself to separate itself. It feels like its own musical sense, so therefore it makes the scene feel like its own unique drama, not just a repeat of things we've seen in the franchise. I like that Yusaku has this moment alone, just him looking at Robapi, looking at his apartment, just kind of having the weight of the world on his shoulders. It's a silent moment, and it's a very poignant moment. I like that Kusanagi and Homura have a final, just quick moment. No big speech, no big final conversation, and the flashback for Yusaku and Kusanagi is also not a big moment. We don't need that. The show respects that we've gotten everything we need to know about these characters and how they think and react to this type of situation. So it's a very nice, well-flowing scene. I like that Aoi gets a final shot, because I feel like she got forgotten for the past few episodes. I do think it's funny she doesn't talk, though. I know Aoi is traditionally represented as a character of few words, usually letting her facial expression do the talking for her. But I can't help but wonder, is the actress just out of contract? Because let's be real here, you can kind of tell watching these two episodes, they're running out of budget fast. But it's not that important. So then Yusaku goes to meet up with Ai, and that's kind of where we just get the second half of that episode and whole of this episode. And I like it. I like this a lot. Ai's plan is really interesting, and his goal. And I think there's still probably one or two little twists to be revealed, which is why I wanted to talk about these two episodes together, because when you only have two episodes left, they kind of will hopefully give them some pizzazz. But so yeah, so just taking everything at face value, Ai's plan is very unique, it's very interesting, it's very original, and the way that the roles are sort of represented here are very interesting. At first, in a way, Ai is the antagonist. He did bad shit to get where he is now. He's got everyone's minds trapped, and he ruined a whole company and put a lot of people's lives in jeopardy and done all this bad shit, mostly just for a plan that has no real end goal, but that's kind of what makes it fascinating. Ai is not trying to take over the world. He's not trying to destroy the world. He's not trying to force his ideology on people. He kind of just wants to fix his loneliness. Like, that's a really interesting direction to drive the character, because remember, what sort of spawned this whole series in the first place is Yusaku wanting to get rid of his own loneliness and defeat his own demons. So here we kind of see that being executed, but just by the opposition and just in a much more extreme way. Like, what's sort of interesting is Ai's giving his big speech, his moment where he talks about why he's doing what he's doing. His Pegasus moment, his Sartorius moment, his Yubel moment. All these moments that are almost always framed as scary and big threats and antagonistic, this time around is being framed as sympathetic and sad and only scary in the sense that you don't know what's going to happen. But for the most part, like, they play Ai as sympathetic, and it's such a good direction and such a unique way to go. Like, just this idea that I don't know what's going to happen, I don't know what they're going to do, I need more AIs. Like, this idea that if all 6 of them are gone, that it meant something, their lives and their point, like, there was a point to their existence. Ai is looking for meaning in this tragedy, a thing so many people do. Like, just wanting to believe it all was for something. And even if it ends up being positive or negative, he wanted it to mean something. And I think that's a very interesting, very fascinating, poignant message. And I like that this sort of way it's framed continues onto the duel. First up, that, like, crazy storm thing going on behind them. I dig that visual. It's a cool final duel location. But the way it sort of begins with Yusaku's speech to, like, you were manipulating me from the beginning. You were there watching me the whole time. I like the way they kind of focus on the phone. It sort of makes you feel like no one was ever safe from what was happening. And normally I don't like the everything was part of a bigger plan. I'm normally not a fan of that, but I think it works here because it kind of fits what was going on. They sort of framed Ai at the beginning that he was hiding something more than just, you know, wanting to be safe and all that good shit. So seeing that kind of get a nice payoff here, I think is interesting. We'll have to see where this whole plays out. But then what's sort of interesting is the duel is kind of framed in a way that you're kind of, Ai is where the investment is. It's almost like Yusaku is sort of put in the antagonist role. He's trying to stop Ai. He's trying to stop this. Obviously, we know that Yusaku's trying to do what he believes is the right thing. But in this situation, like, everything is told from Ai's perspective. We're more in Ai's head as he thinks his play out. We're still doing kind of goofy bits with Ai. The camera is always representing Ai in kind of this friendly light. It's like we're almost supposed to be wondering if we should root for Ai just out of the sadness we feel for him. It's a very interesting, very well-framed set of shots. Meanwhile, the duel itself is actually pretty exciting. I won't lie. Yeah, it's another one of these 50 billion pack filler cards that do 50 billion things. that really only makes sense in this situation. Although he's playing Flame Buffalo and Sea Archiver, which is, let's be real here, that's fucking Salamangreat support at this point. But yeah, no, what I sort of like is it's a lot of different summoning, so it sort of makes it feel like everything they're doing has its own unique sense of purpose. And the fact that they go all crazy out with all the different mechanics and their summoning animations, it gives it kind of this big, epic feel that I think you want for a nice finale. That being said, so many of the monsters' summoning animations being reused is a tad distracting, but it's not as bad as it could have been had the plot not been so interesting to follow. So yeah, that is these 2 episodes. Oh yeah, and the summoning of the giant thing. In hindsight, the idea of doing a rank 6 with all the different things representing the other Ignises pretty much made sense from the beginning. Like, I think it's a nice fitting thing, and I love when the thing comes out too. It's like this giant, just godlike monster. It's both a nice combination of scary and kind of weird to look at, but also has this kind of majestic feeling of power to it. I think it's what you kind of need for a situation like this. So yeah, that is these 2 episodes. A lot of crazy shit. Looks like we're on our way to a pretty crazy finale. But what did you think about them below? To give me your thoughts on these past 2 episodes in the comment section beneath us. And as for the TCG question of the week, kind of an interesting one for you. So with the Rising Rampage Special Edition, we get 2 more Marincess cards coming out in it. And it's kind of got me wondering, did Marincesses fail? I mean, they failed, right? They're not topping, they're not doing anything, which sucks because they were the archetype most people were excited about coming out of Rising Rampage, but then they just kind of petered out. So my question to you is, with their next round of support, do you think they could do something, considering we're in a much more slower meta here? We have a much more powered down meta, and we are seeing a ton of rogue top. So tell me what you think about that below. And as always, click to like, click subscribe, and join me next week. I promise I should be able to get this out on time.